Okay, so good day, everyone that's coming in.
Hey, Mr. Ray, it's William.
Yes, good day, William. I was wondering if my sound was working at first, but yes, good day. And I'm just going to go through the names as I write them down. So welcome again, Ray. George, good to have you as well.
Yeah, present.
And Veronica.
Here.
Okay, great to have you as well. Sergio, good to see you. And Alma, welcome.
Here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Justine, good to see you as well, that you're here. And we have Susanna. Welcome, Susanna.
Hey.
And Salvador, welcome, Salvador.
Hello.
And Clemente, welcome to class today.
How you doing, Mr. Ray?
And William, just writing down your name now, but welcome again.
Thank you.
And Latavia,
Good evening, sir.
good evening. And Dorcas, good to have you as well.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Ray.
Good evening. And Erica. Good day, Erica.
Mr. Ray, it's Daniel Bohorkis. Sorry, I'm on my wife's.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was looking through here. I was like, I remember seeing Erica one time, but okay.
Yeah,
thank
I got
you.
it. Yeah, I'm on her.
I was like,
computer,
the
my bad.
last name looks familiar. And then I was
Yeah,
like,
my phone needed to charge. I'm usually on my phone and then handling stuff around the house. But yeah, I'm not sure if you got my email for last week. Why I missed last Tuesday and Thursday, but I emailed you and then I also emailed the school. Somebody from the school I emailed.
I believe I got your email. I think I edited it in the thing. I remember, yeah, I did get your email. And let me just make
Okay.
sure I made a note in the system. So just to do that real fast.
Just so that doesn't count. I don't know if that's still going to count against me because I know you said you only allow like 3.
Yeah, technically it's 3, as long as you guys give valid excuses and it's not too much. But even still, they normally would contact you. So some of
Yeah,
them.
they from the school they did, and I changed my name. Yeah, it works. They did, and I did talk to. I emailed back some lady. I forgot her name, and I let her know I had a funeral, and I also for Tuesday I was in a work meeting for like 2.5 hours that I didn't expect.
Right.
And I was like, I was gonna try to still log in and put my earpiece in, but you know that also probably make my boss pretty pissed off. Excuse my language, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and then Tuesday I had my cousin's funeral. I had to attend that, and then I'm here today. So
Well, my condolences, and yeah, that's very understandable there.
thank you.
So yeah, if something like that happens again, it was the first day was the funeral, and then the second day was
No, the
work
first day was
meeting.
the funeral. No, sorry, the Thursday was the funeral, and then Tuesday I had a work meeting after work. I didn't know it was gonna run that long, and it ran me till like 7:30 and stuff like that. And by the time I got home, I got, you know what I mean, everything set up. It was just way
Right.
too late. So
Okay, yeah. So I'm just putting that in there so that you can see that too. So September 17, 2020. Yeah, so once I put that in there, it definitely helps because they see that you are really serious about coming to school. Part of the reason is there's normally a large amount of students who are trying to get in.
right.
And so the philosophy is, well, if a person misses too many, then we can let someone else in instead. So yeah, when you show like, yeah, I really am trying to be here, and you give information like that, that really helps to say that you're really serious about the class.
Right. Gotcha.
All right. So yeah, I put that in the system so they'll see it as well to know that you've contacted me.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. And I have 2 more people who just entered contact. I just want to do that real fast. So as people are coming in, you guys could just review any material that you might have questions on. Let me just let in a few more people into the class. All right, welcome, Maria.
Hello.
Good to have you here. All right, and then you'll see also. And let me see. All right, so I think I have most explanations there, and let me come back, see if anyone else is in. Welcome, Jacob. Okay, we have also Marisol, Beatrice, and Jimenez. Okay, so I think that's just about everyone. Now, last week we finished up with fractions and mixed numbers. Any other questions there with fractions and mixed numbers? Today, if there are no other questions regarding fractions and mixed numbers, we are going on to ratios and proportions. And in order to do that effectively, it's good that you have an understanding of fractions. So any questions about fractions before going on?
No, sir.
Nope.
Okay. Well, with that said, in the student book, we are lesson 5, and that is page, I don't know, I cut off the pages. Page 10. All right, so page 10 on lesson 5, we are now looking at ratios and proportions. And you want to continually review all the material that we've covered so far, especially in these workbooks. As you saw last week, the workbooks can have some challenging questions that don't appear in the student book at times. And it allows for you to, in a sense, rack your brain. It's good to do that. It's good to stress your brain with new information. Just the same way, it's good to go to the gym and work out your muscles to activate growth. So today we're looking at ratios and proportions. I know some of you should have a basic understanding of them. And I'm just trying to get control of my pen. All right, so a ratio is a comparison of 2 numbers, as you see there. Now the thing is, you can write a ratio as a fraction. You can write it using the word 2, or with a colon, which you also read as 2. So you can have 3 to 2 relationship as a colon, a 3 to 2 relationship in terms of a verbal statement, and then as a fraction as 3 to 2. That order is really important, and the way that is written determines whether or not you will get it correct. And so the one on the left comes first, as you see here, and then which comes first is the top. You could think When a person's in the front or first, they're on the top. So that's how you want to make sure you write it out. So you will be going from, in certain times, in certain scenarios, from a ratio to a fraction and vice versa. And you can use that to assist you in finding answers. Now that we established how we can write a ratio and its equivalency to a fraction, we can also look at what a proportion is. And a proportion is basically when you have, I'm trying to change the color here. A proportion is basically when you have an equation, meaning an equal sign, with a ratio on each side. Now, the way to write the ratio in a proportion is always in a fractional format. So if I have 2/3, well, we learned using our fractions in the previous lesson that we can have an equivalent fraction such as 4/6. These fractions are equal to each other. Remember, if we divide or even multiply, depending which way I want to go, I multiply 2 by 2, I get 4. And if I multiply 3 by 2, I get 6. Similarly, because these are equivalent fractions, I can reduce the other side by dividing 4 by 2 and get 2, and divide the 6 by 2 and get 3. They are equivalent in terms of value, not necessarily number. So remember, again, 2/3 of a pizza would be if I had a pizza and I had 3 slices. And if I ate 2/3 of a pizza, then I can represent it graphically that way. But if I had a pizza that was the exact same size, and this time I cut it into 6s, but it's the exact same pizza, remember, I'm still eating the same amount of pizza. Because I've increased the slices does not mean I have increased the size. And so if I ate 2/3 here and 4/6 here, it's still the same amount of pizza that has been eaten. It's just more slices, smaller slices. So 2/3 and 4/6 are the same. So you see how you need to have an understanding of fractions here. Now, what's interesting is that if we do what's called the cross product or cross multiplication, something unique pops up. If I multiply the diagonal together, 2 times 6 is equal to 12. And then I multiply the other diagonals. What do you notice about 3 times 4? That is also 12. So the diagonals, the product, the multiplication of the diagonal numbers in a proportion are equal. And because they are equal, I can go ahead and solve problems so that if I had 2/3 equals to x over 6, and I didn't know what that x was, then I could multiply and figure it out. I could say 2 times 6 is 12, and then 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times what will give me 12? Or I could say 12 divided by 3 will give me what the missing variable is. And I'll divide on both sides, and I can figure out that is indeed 4, as we saw there. And so that's what a ratio and a proportion is. They work just like fractions. They're built off of the concept of fractions. And we're going to use both of those to figure out how to do different types of problems. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. And as you see here, this is an example of a proportion. So first of all, let's do it using number 1. So you can just follow along here in your book. If you look at number 1. Any questions, though, about what we just did? I know.
Just wait. I have one.
Sure.
At the end, just a little simple how you get the X answer.
All right, so that x is, we divide it. Well, we will divide. So I think I had 2/3, I believe, and I had the x here. And so we cross multiply because the rule says that the cross product of any fractions or ratios, as in an equation, or proportion, which is 2 fractions equated to each other, are equal. So that means 2 times 6 is 12. And also 3 times x. As we saw earlier, 2 times 6 is the same as 3 times 4. But I'm just showing how we can use that to find out what 4 is if we did not know that a 4 should have been there. All right, so once we do that, we get 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times x is 3x. Now, that means 3 times a number. That's what this means. 3 times a number is 12. Well, we should know what that is. 3 times what gives me 12? 4. But there's another way we can work it out. We can do the opposite, and we can write it down, which means when we have harder numbers, it's easier to understand what we're doing. And so we can do the opposite. And the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So if I divide both sides by the number I want to get rid of, which is this 3, remember we learned 3 divided by 3 is just 1. And what we do to one side of the equation, we can do to the other. So we're basically just saying 12 divided by 3 will give me the missing variable. But we're writing it out in a way that is easy to duplicate over and over and for someone else to understand. So 12 divided by 3 gives us 4. And the variable which we're just representing, remember we could draw a box as well. Last week we were drawing empty boxes. Now we're just replacing the empty boxes with an x. And so x would be equal to 4. Just as we saw earlier when I equated the fractions in the very beginning. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and so we're going to see more of it. Normally I'll go over ratios first and then proportions, but today I just decided to show them both at the same time. All right, so let's go ahead. Here's some examples here of proportions again, but we're just going to jump right into it and do some practicing. All right, so number 1 says Carlene bought 3 gallons of milk for $12. How much would 4 gallons of milk cost? So Carlene bought, say that again?
16?
16.
Hey, I hear someone saying 16, and how are you getting 16?
It's gonna be 4 divided by 12. Sorry,
Okay. I hear 4 divided by 12.
That'll be 48 and then
4
divide.
times.
So you said 4 divided by 12 gives you 16. I'm hearing different people, so I'm just throwing out stuff just so that whoever's going to answer.
So, Mr. Ray,
Yeah.
if you divide 3 by 12, it gives you 4. So actually, if you're going to get 4, you just add 4 to the 12, and that'll give you 16. But I don't think that's what we're doing, is it?
Not quite. I mean, it works.
I mean,
It's not going to work every single time.
Right.
I'll give you guys this much. The answer is 16. But we just want to make sure we know how to get 16 every single time, because sometimes they give you numbers that are a little bit more challenging. Sometimes it could be fractions or decimals. So we could write it in terms of a ratio, number 1. Okay, I'm just looking at what's being sent. Latavia has sent her answer in as well. 12 divided by 4, which is 48, and then divide that by 3, which is 16. Okay, yeah, that actually works. That's basically how proportions work. All right, so if we were to do it using ratios, so first this is ratios. We have 3 gallons of milk to $12. So 16 is right, but you just want to be careful. You don't want to do any subtraction or any addition here. If you subtract and add and get the right answer, it's not guaranteed it will work the next time. It will work for these numbers just because of the properties of 3, 12, and 4. But it will not always work if you did like 5, 7, and 18 or something. So let's go ahead with 3 to 12. You notice that gallons is written first and then dollars. So that's the order we want to keep it in. You could put it in a different order, but since that's the order that is currently written, we can continue with that order. And then we have 4 gallons to, we don't know how much dollars, right? We're not sure how much dollars that is. And so as many of you possibly saw, you can figure out what this missing variable is or missing number by just doing some quick operations. You can see 3 times what, this is one way you could do it. 3 times what gives me 12. And you could say 3 times 4 gives me 12. And so that means I get 4 times 4 will give me 16, right? The beauty of ratios is that whatever is the connection between one will be the connection between the other. All right, Jodaro, welcome as well. That's one way that you could do it as well. You could have wrote it a different way, and let me show you the other way that you could have wrote it to figure it out. If you need that, I can always go back. The other way you could have wrote it is that you had 3 gallons here. You could have compared the gallons. We have 3 gallons to 4 gallons. And then $12 that goes with this one. We don't know how many dollars. And we can see here that if I multiply this by 4, 3 times 4 is 12, that I can multiply this one, and 4 times 4, what you do to one side, do to the other. 4 times 4 is also your answer, 16. So you could have done it that way, sideways. And then you could have done it using proportions. If you had done proportions, you could have said 3 to 12 is equal to 4 to I don't know how much dollars, right? So you have 3 gallons to $12, 4 gallons to we don't know how many dollars. And so what we can do is just put X there. Remember, we learned that we can cross multiply. So if we cross multiply that, we get 3X, as some of you guys had written. We have 3X, come on pen. We have 3X is equal to, that's the first diagonal, times 4 times 12, and 4 times 12 is 48. And this is what some of you had said or mentioned. And then you would divide both sides by 3, because you're just trying to figure out 3 times what gives me 48. And then X would be equal to 48 divided by 3 is 16. So and then there's even another way you could go about doing it. But most of you, as I said in the very beginning, will have a general understanding of how to do this. As long as you work with numbers, you will have a general understanding of how to find these. So your answer there is C. And I just showed 3 different ways. All right, does anyone prefer a specific way? If you know how to do it the way that you like, you can stick with it. Anyone else who's like kind of just really getting a form, is there a specific way that you like better? Do you like the proportions better? Do you like seeing it via the ratios?
I like to know all 3.
Oh, you like all 3?
Yeah. I
Okay.
like to know all 2 ways.
All right, so what, and that's totally fine. Some people like them all. Some people will like just one.
This one that you have right here on the bottom,
Like
Mr.
the
Ray,
proportions method.
that's the ratio, right?
Mr. Ray, so which is which? Which is the ratio? Which is the proportion? The top one is the proportion. The bottom one is the ratio.
Yes, in that case, the top one here is the proportion, and maybe I should have wrote it out. So that's the proportion right there that I circled.
Okay. Can you explain that one again real quick? I'm trying to figure out the yellow part of it.
I'll do it again. I'll do it again from start to finish.
Thank you.
Excuse me. With a proportion, what you do is just write it as a fraction.
Yeah.
Traditionally, whichever the first comparison is, we write that as a fraction. That's the easiest way to start off. So because you're paying 3 gallons that cost $12, you can write it as 3 gallons to $12. You can put the units there just to help you out so that you stay consistent, which means you don't want to have gallons down bottom on the second comparison. You want the gallons to be on the top because that's how the comparison works. So the one that's gallons, right? Basically, you want to have it that gallons is on the top and dollars is on the bottom. And I'm having internet issues. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can.
Okay, I just got a message that my internet was unstable. All right, so where was I? So that means you want to have 4 gallons on the top, and you're trying to figure out how many dollars you're going to have.
Yes. So
Right?
that'll be okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so you saw I had put an X there. And you could draw a box if you want. It's just that we're getting closer to algebra, and so you're going to start to see variables pop up. All right, so we have X that just
Real quick
represents.
question, Mr. Ray.
Somebody ask something?
Yeah, real quick question. Now, how you have it written out with the 4 gallons on top and the X on bottom, does it matter how you write that out, or should you?
Yes, it does. The key is that you always want your units to be in line with each other. So if you put the gallons on the top, then the other gallons has to be on the top.
The gallons on, okay, and then the money on the bottom.
Right. You could have had the money on the top, it will still work as long as you're consistent and you put the gallons on the bottom. If you put the gallons on the
Gotcha.
top, it's going to throw your answer off, and you're going to get something wrong.
Okay.
All right,
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
it's just
Perfect.
always be consistent. Whatever you put on the top, make sure you follow suit with the other comparison.
Okay.
All right, because basically it's like we're comparing two pizzas. We're comparing the pizza that's cut into 4s versus a pizza cut into 8s. And since we can make the fractions equal, and we know that the cross products are equal, then as long as we keep the pattern the same, we can work out for the missing side or the missing amount. All right, so whichever
Gotcha.
order you do, you want to stay consistent there. So we multiply, we cross multiply, because as I showed you on top, when you cross multiply equivalent fractions, the answers are the same. So because that concept is true throughout, that means I can multiply these two together, and 3 times x is 3x. I'm ignoring the g now, and I'm treating the x like a number. So 3 times some number x, we don't know what the number is yet, in theory, and then 12 times the 4. These will be equal as we saw, and 12 times 4 is 48. So that means 3 times some number is equal to 48. And most of you should by now know that the opposite of multiplication is division, which means you could figure it out by just simply saying 48 divided by 3. Well, we have a way to write that out. And the way that we do that is just to show, in order to divide by 3 and to get rid of it neatly on the other side, we divide both sides of the equation by 3.
That's the part I missed. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. When we do that, 3 divided by 3, remember we were practicing that last week. 3 divided by 3 is just 1, and 1x is just x, right? 1 car is the same as a car. 1 person is the same as a person. So 1x can just be written as x.
Yes.
And then 48 divided by 3 is 16. And so using proportions, you can find it relatively quickly. Now, proportions, sometimes people like it because it's more methodical. Let me just write down Adriana. Let's come in. And by more methodical, I mean it's more procedural based, meaning you can see the steps quite clearly. So that's how you do it using proportions. Remember, with ratios, you're comparing them and then just trying to see what is the common multiple that can get you to the following number. Sometimes ratios are easier. Sometimes using proportions are easier. And then some of you might have another method that you see. And
Mr. Ray,
yes.
I have just to clarify something. When you put here 3x over 3, the bottom 3, where are you getting that 3 from? Is it because 3 will cancel out 3 and
Yes,
that'll equal to the 1x?
That's the main thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to get the x to be by itself. And so in order to do that, you do the opposite operation, which is to divide, and you divide by the same number so that they cancel out.
Okay, got it.
So if I had 4x, I would have divided by 4. If I had 5x, I would divide it by 5. If I had negative 6x, I would divide both sides by negative 6. And we treat an equation like a seesaw. So if I was to put 10 pounds, if the seesaw is just balanced and it was just, you know, horizontal, and I put 10 pounds, it's going to make it drop. In order to balance it back out, I have to put 10 pounds back on the other side. And that's the thing here, because the equal sign is kind of like the seesaw. We divide both sides by 3. And so x is going to be equal to 48 divided by 3, which is 16.
So what if it would have been like, for example, just like 5x over 5?
Well,
there would be a remainder. What would that, will we ever run into something like that to where there's like a non-even division in between the two numbers?
Technically you can, but normally they're going to give you problems that will not do that. But you can, because that's just reality. You can run into issues like that. If you're dealing with cars, then no, because you don't want, well, actually you could get a question where you could get 4.5 cars and then they want you to round it. But in terms of ratios, technically it's a negative. They're not going to give you a question like that. But if you do, then yes. Let's just say it was 48. Then you'd divide it by 5. And then you would get x is equal to 5 goes into 48 9 times with 3 left over. So it would be like 9 3/5. But technically, when you're in ratios, you treat it similar to fractions. And so you want whole numbers generally. So at the GED level, I don't think you're going to run into any questions where that's going to pop up.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understood that part. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's go on then. And we're just going to see that this kind of concept pops up over and over. Remember, order is important. So let's go ahead. We're going to go straight to number 7 because number 7 is more like what we're doing and pretty straightforward. So this one says the GED preparation class has a teacher to student ratio of 1 to 12. So let's see if you guys remember the instructions. If the teacher to student ratio is 1 to 12, how many teachers are there? How many students are there?
We're doing 7.
Number 7, yes.
Okay.
So how many teachers would be there?
1 and 12 students.
1 and 12 students. The order is important. Whatever order they stated in is directly correlated to the order of the ratio. So since 1 comes first and teacher came first, 1 belongs to the teacher. So 1 teacher to the colon, 12 students. That's the ratio that it's in. So then it asks if there are 36 students in the class, how many teachers are present? And I hear some answers and I see some answers.
3.
All right, so I hear 3. And most, like I said, most of you will be able to figure this out just because of your connection with numbers. And so if we were to write it out, we have 1 to 12 and 3 is correct. That is the answer. If we have 1 to 12, and what you notice here is that 36 represents a student, so that will go second.
Yeah.
And you can just see, well, what times what would get me to 36? 12 times 3. So what times 1 will get me to my new answer? Well, whatever I did to the right side, do the same here. So 1 times 3 would be 3. 3 to 36. And so that's my answer. And you could treat it like a fraction as well, and that's basically a ratio. If you did it using ratios, you can say 1 to 12 is equal to, I don't know how many teachers, to 36 students, right? Teacher to student ratio, teacher to student, right? If I have a teacher to student ratio, it then allows me to write it in a 1 to 12 fractional relationship, which is equal to the x, I don't know how many teachers, to 36 students. And then I can use my understanding of cross multiplying. 36 times 1 is 36. 12 times x is 12x. And then 12 times what gives me 36, which is the same as dividing the right side by 12 to cancel the 12s and what we do to one side of the equation do to the other. And 36 divided by 12 is equal to 3. And so that's how you do it using proportions. Now, understanding how to do it by proportions is really important. And the reason why is that we're going to come back to using proportions in algebra and geometry. When you do similar shapes and we use proportions to figure out the heights of other objects, we actually use the proportion method to do that and writing it out in a proportion. When you get to algebra, you're going to see equations written like this, 2x and like x plus 1. And they're going to ask you to solve that. The way that we solve it, guess what? Is through proportions. We'll do a proportion and then get an equation and then solve the equation. So you do want to understand the concept of proportions, and there's no better way to learn it than now. So if you are doing it a different way, it's fine, but do pay attention on how to actually set up a proportion. All right, so yeah, that was correct. Number 7 was 3 if you got number 3. All right, let's try number 8. What would be the answer to number 8? So you can go ahead and try it, write your answer in if you get it before me.
Miles and 20. How many miles?
So I'll read it. Sarah can ride 4 miles in 20 minutes on her bike. How many miles can she bike in 120 minutes?
The 24?
Hey, I hear an answer. I won't say the answer yet. I'll give everybody a chance. So just check to see if your work makes sense. So we have 24 as one answer. If you agree, all right, Susanna, I see your answer.
Yeah, 24.
All right, so another 24.
$24.
Okay, another 24. And let's have you see it working. All right, so you did the proportions. Okay, Marisol. All right, so I'm getting a good bit of 24s here. And that is correct. The answer is 24. Now, once again, there's a variety of ways to do it. But as I said in the beginning, I'm just showing how to do it using ratios and proportions. So Sarah can ride 4 miles in 20 minutes. I can write it as 4 miles into 20 minutes. So because I have miles to minutes, that means my miles go first, then my minutes. So if I'm trying to figure out what the new one is, I don't know how many miles there are. So I could put an X, I could put a blank spot, I could leave it blank, and I have 120 minutes. So you could just say, well, what times what, or what divided by what, whichever way works best for you. What times 120 will give me, what times 20 will give me 120. Well, if you hide the zeros, then you can say 2 times what gives me 12, and that's 6. So if I multiply by 6 on both sides, I will get my answer. So 6 times 4 is 24. And that's how I can find the first one using ratios. If I wanted to use proportions, then I would do the same thing. First, then second, so miles to minutes. All right, so miles first, then minutes. So I have 4 miles to 20 minutes is equal to X amount of miles over 120 minutes, right? Just keep the order. Mathematics is all about order, and as long as you write everything orderly and in a structural manner, math can be really easy. All right, so we have 4 times 120, and 4 times 120 is going to give us 480. And then we're going to have X times 20, and that's going to yield 20X. So hopefully you got the gist down now. You're basically saying 20 times what gives me 480. So you're going to divide by 20. Now the way that we do it in its formal sense is we divide 20 that's next to the X variable, or the missing variable, unknown variable rather, so that we can cancel, and X is by itself. And then 480, or 48 divided by 2, is equal to 24. So remember, that's a trick. You can cross out the zeros that are in common when you're dividing. And then 48 divided by 2 is simply 24, if you can make that out. And so 24 is our answer, using the concept of ratios and fractions, or by using the concept of proportions and fractions. Both ways are using the concept of fractions, as you can see. All right, any questions there? All right, let's do number 9. I'm about to clear it. If you need it, just let me know. But number 9 says the ratio of adults to children on a field trip is 2 to 7. If there are 14 adults on the trip, how many children are there?
2 to 7. 14.
Now, the more you do the ratio method, depending on how the numbers are written, you could do it in your head. And the more you do the proportion method, the faster you can do it by hand.
88. Mr. Ray?
Yes.
Okay, now I got it. I couldn't see the bottom numbers.
Oh, what happened?
I could only see the A and the B. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I see here 28 and I see 49. So I have two answers that have come in, two different types. I have more than one answer, of course, more than two answers, but two different answers.
Adults.
49s and 28s. All right, I got another answer privately. All right, those who sent it privately. So since you sent it privately, Justine, you sent it to everyone. I'll just write you guys back.
Okay.
All right, so remember, I'm gonna start it up. So if you're still working on it, you still have time to send in an answer. Okay, and William, your second one. Yeah, that's correct. All right, so the ratio of adults to children on a field trip is 2 to 7. So you see here we're doing adults to children in that order. So when it says 2 to 7, then it's 2 adults to 7 children. If there are 14 adults on the trip, well, how many children? Well, all you need to do is see what happened to your adults. Your adults were, I didn't have a word for 7, that's like double, quadruple. The adults increased 7 times. So 7 times 2 is 14. So that means if you have 7 times more the adults, then you have 7 times, well, you need to have 7 times the amount of children. And 7 times 7 is 49. And practicing that, you can eventually do it in your head. You can say, oh, 2 times 7, that's 14. Okay, so 7 times 7 is 49. Right, and so that's your answer, D. If you like proportions, then you can set it up as a proportion. You have adults first, so that's on the top, to children. So adults to children, and I have adults to adults. I have 7 children, and that's going to be equal to 14 adults over I don't know how many children. And so I need to figure that out, and I can cross multiply. So I can say 2 times X.
my.
Is everything all right?
I'm having a hard time with the layout of the proportions, but I know I see where I messed up. It's just my number. It's just
Right.
I'm trying to get the layout right, but I keep missing the order.
Okay, did it make sense this time how to do the order?
Definitely, I see where I messed up, yes.
Okay, yeah, so just remember, get the name, like adults to children, and then say the number, so 2 adults to 7 children, and even if you're saying it in your head, 14 adults to X children.
Do it.
Yeah, normally I would write it there, but I don't have much space, so I would write 2 adults to 7 children and 14 adults. So, you know, I put here just adults, children, adults, children. But I didn't want the
I like the ratio.
Dealership.
I like the ratio procedure more because it's much more simple. But I'm trying to get both of them right, so
right.
I know it.
Yeah, it's good to know both, especially proportions, because we're coming back to it. And sometimes, I'll just be honest, like these are straightforward questions. Sometimes you're going to see ratios can be a little bit difficult unless you understand fractions. And then the type of fractions that you're going to run into, it'll be easier just to write it as a proportion. If you guys remind me, I'll give you a challenging one to show you that the ratios you can run into some trouble sometimes. All right, so we have 2x. Once we multiply, 2 times x is 2x, and 14 times 7 is 98. Remember, 2 times some number is 98. So 98 divided by 2 will give you that number. And to write it out in a format that's easy to follow, what we do is to get the x by itself, we do the opposite operation with the same number. And what we do to one side of the equation, we'll do to the other side, just to make it equal. And 2 divided by 2 is 1x, or just x. and 98 divided by 2 is 49.
Awesome.
All right, and so we can work it
Okay.
out one or two ways.
Yeah, this way works better for me.
Proportions?
Yes, the ratio one throws me off.
That's fine.
I've been learning the proportion ones for a while now, and it's the order, like you said, order. I get mixed up.
It's orderly, so it definitely helps out with people because it stays in order. And
Okay.
like I said, proportions, you're going to just keep seeing it in every unit, basically. So it's good to know it, and if that's what you're comfortable with, it makes it a plus there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's now try number 10. Now look at number 10 is a little bit tricky there, so I'm going to clear it. If you need to me to go back, just let me know. All right, number 10. I'll read it to you, but make sure you look at it carefully. It may look tricky, but it's not. It's just straightforward if you remember the rules. All right, so the ratio of cars to trucks at an auto dealership is 3:2, or 3/2. If there are 144 cars at the dealership, how many trucks are there? And Latavia, I see your answer. You sent it privately, so that's correct. And Latavia, I'm not sure if you saw a shortcut to this, but I will let you explain it since you got it so fast. I want to see if you saw the shortcut to this answer or if you just did something else. But once everybody gets an answer,
Mine's
wait,
96.
not yet. Wait till everybody gets an answer in.
Okay,
So I'll call on you real soon, Latavia.
I'll have to wait for you.
No, try it out. Don't allow for.
I don't even know how to start this one.
Yes, you do. What did I say last time? What's the first thing you want to write out?
Okay, proportion. Okay. 144 cars at dealership. Okay.
Okay, Justine, Dorcas, I see your answers. Justine, since you sent it privately, that's correct.
Okay, so it's 3:2. And these are cars. These are trucks.
All right, William, Alma, and Susanna, see your answers in.
Jim,
Susanna, you sent it privately. That's correct.
Okay, let me send my own
Okay, I'm
private.
almost there.
Let me send my own.
Say that again, George.
Let me send my own private. Okay, let me give my own answer.
You said you sent it privately. I don't see an answer.
Okay, have you seen it now?
You sent it to everyone, but I see your answer.
Wow, okay, I made a mistake there to everyone instead of you privately.
You have to make sure you go in the drop-down menu and look for my name.
James, how do I do this?
Marisol, that's correct. You sent it privately. Veronica, that is correct. You sent it privately. Alma, I'll write you privately. If you sent it to everyone, I'm just going to write you. Right, there we go. Gennaro, you're telling me you couldn't do it, but you got it. That's correct.
I got it. All right.
See,
All right, awesome.
if I didn't tell you to do it, you would have just thought you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I
always challenge yourself. Always challenge yourself.
Okay.
Because most times the answers are in our heads. We just have to have the confidence to go through with it.
Okay.
So just have confidence.
I think the fraction number in this equation was what threw me off. Like these little.
Yes, and they did that on purpose. The testing to see who really understands the principles. Remember, I kept saying ratios, proportions, and fractions are all the same thing, right? It's just different ways to write them.
Yeah, that's my problem. Sometimes I try to just do it quickly, knowing I could do it, but I just try to do it quick and I have to read all this. And
well, yeah,
I did the order like you did. I labeled my cars and my trucks and the quantity, the total I have, and yeah, I just did the math from the last problem.
All right.
Got it.
Okay, well done.
Awesome.
Right. So, Latavia, I'm going to allow you. Did you do a shortcut or did you actually do some working?
I did the work and I did the proportion aspect.
So you're just really fast with it then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's lightning speed. By the time I said start, you already had the answer up.
Because I did them actually yesterday.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, wow, that was like lightning.
Yeah.
McQueen. But you can still explain it. Did you want to give it a try?
Sure. So I got the 3/2 equal to 144 over x. And then what I did, I said 3x because I'm cross multiplying now. So I did 3x equal to 2 multiplied by 144. That will give me 288 equal to 3x. And then I divide the 3x by 288. That gives me 96.
Nice.
Yes.
All right, so 96.
Yes.
Now let me show you a shortcut that works many, many, many times. And if you go back over the problems, you see the GED normally gives you at least that you have the ability to guess down to 2 possible answers or 1. Every so often you can't guess at all. But a good bit of the times you can guess your answer. And let me just show you how you could have did it for this one.
Can I say?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I did it like Lativia too. I kind of did my like 2 times 144 equals 288, and then what will I multiply to give me 288, which was 96.
Right. So you're doing it in your head, and that's fine, as long as you don't get mixed up in the process. But like I said, a good bit of you guys will be able to figure it out without any real working, and that's fine. So yeah, that's correct. What you've done there, that's the same concept of what's proportions. Marisol, it could have been the internet, just letting you know. All right, let me just show you guys how you can reason from cause to effect sometimes. Remember, the relationship is cars first to trucks.
Right.
Which one is greater in the simplified ratio, cars or trucks?
Cars.
Cars. More cars than trucks. So if you have 144 cars, could it be 288 for trucks?
No.
No, you can't have more trucks than cars. Could it be 240?
No.
No.
216?
No.
No. You see, sometimes, a lot of times they give you that option. And you look at a lot of questions. Some of them I skipped over because I really wanted you guys to see how to do working. But even if you look back at the fractions and other numbers, you can see that sometimes you could just guess your way down to the answer really quickly. You know, you could even kind of do it here. Number 9 is ratio of adults to children. There are less adults than children, right? And so if you have 14 adults, you know it can't be 1 child, it can't be 7. So now you have 2 to decide between C and D. So it gives you a 50% chance. So a lot of times you can kind of guess just by cutting down, which it cannot be. Sometimes it gets you down to 2 answers, sometimes down to the answer itself. So always keep that in mind. Let's just say you get stuck. Don't give up. See if you can guess down to the answer. Sometimes if you get stuck, you could get your answers correct by just thinking about it. All right, let's go ahead and, what time is it? 6:55.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the GED test, they might ask to write down the right question, the right answer, or they always is going to be the option to the right.
No, sometimes it's multiple choice. Sometimes, remember, we had that drag and drop. We have to click the box and drag it to the correct spot. Sometimes it's drag and drop. Sometimes it's fill in the blank. Sometimes it's multiple choice. Sometimes it's some type of matching activity they might have. So it's different ways that you can answer. Most times in the book, you can see a variety of answers. Let me get my book real quick. For instance, if you just look at, we're on page, what page are we on? Page 11. So if you look at page 9, what we were doing last week, you see number 9 has a lot of drag and drop options. You have to click a box on the computer. You actually click it, drag it, and drop it into the box. So you have to click the right number. Remember I was doing that last week? I would draw the box and then try to drag it into the right spot. Sometimes you have to answer your questions that way. Sometimes they're fill in the blank. Sometimes it's a drop-down menu, meaning you click the menu and a choice selection pops and you can click the correct one. Fill in the blanks. An example of fill in the blank is page 5. If you go to page 5 on operations, something we did at the beginning of this course, you see all of those questions were fill in the blank. So with the fill in blank option, you have to get it right. And that one's considered more working because you have to know for certainty that you're right. It's no like, okay, like my answer's here or my answer's not here, so I know to do it over. It's you have to know your answer's correct. And so that's where understanding how to do it comes in. So it's always good to know both how to deduce your way to the correct answer if it's multiple choice, and how to find the answer if it's fill in the blank. So great question there.
And Mr. A.
Yes.
I'm still kind of thinking about number 10 that we were doing it. Because my question is, can we solve it with the ratio procedure? Because we figured it out with the proportion just because of the order in which we've been doing things. I was trying to figure it out with the ratio, but I was in conflict because it's an improper fraction there. And it messed me up.
Just remember it's in fraction form. And remember, we can rewrite, I said in the beginning, sometimes it helps to rewrite your fraction back into ratio format. So you see the ratio format is cars to trucks. What represents the cars in that fraction?
The 3.
And what represents trucks?
2.
So we have a 3, I wrote T. We have a 3 to 2 relationship. Which means in my next one, I have 144 cars to X amount of trucks. Or I think I just left it blank in my previous question, so I'll just draw a blank spot there. Right, and so we just need to see 3 times what will get me to 144. And you could just use your understanding of your multiples of 12. What would that be divided by 4 as you go up? So 48, I believe. So you times that by 48.
Again, it's my layout of the information that confuses me.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's just once you get that part, it becomes really easy. Just remember order.
I just have to be very careful how I write it down. If I'm gonna go through the ratio procedure, know how I'm gonna lay it out so it doesn't confuse me. Or if I'm gonna go over which, because of this last one, I like the proportion method a little bit better.
Right. This one's easier because it's already in there. Yeah. So what you can practice is just the order. So let's just do that real quick. If I write something and I say cats to dogs, how do I rewrite that in proportion, in ratio format?
Cats, the 2 dots and the dog.
Right. Cats, the colon, and dog. And so if I have something that's written as, for instance, let me clear everything. If I had a 3 to 15 relationship, and then I had something like blank to 9, and I said this is a relationship of I'm trying to think of something. Sports, sports to school. I don't know, I just thought of something. Right, how would we rewrite that? If I wanted to write it in terms of proportions, what would my proportions look like?
It'd be the same, 3 over 5 equal to x over 9.
Right, so that would be 3 over 15, right, is already in that format, equals to x over 9. And what does the 3 and the x represent?
I don't know how to explain that part.
Sports.
Sports, that's correct. And what does the 15 and the 9 represent?
School.
School. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Remember, order is important, and you can always think the first is on the top, and the first, we read from left to right in the westernized system. And so since sports is first and 3 is on the top, that means it's first. Then 3 represents sports, X represents sports, this blank represents sports. It means that the 15 represents school, 9 represents school, and 15 and 9 represents school. Right? Just remember, order is important. And as long as you remember first and second, you don't have to worry about 3. Higher up, you have to do 3 ratios. You might have something that's in a 2 to 3 to 4 relationship. etc. So like when you get higher up, you got to do stuff like that. But you only have to do 2, and so just remember first and second, top and bottom. Did somebody call me?
Yes, I had a question. If we were to, like, for example, the x over 9, if it was the other way around, 9 over x, would we mess up and get the wrong answer?
Yes, if you mix it up, let's say you're 3 over 15, and then you rewrote it as 9 over x, yes, you get a wrong answer.
Okay, just it's
so
important.
Order is very, very important.
Line up the units.
Yeah, line up the units, and that's why I was trying to stress here. Each time I was trying to, write it out. So cars.
I was based on.
Okay.
All right, cars to trucks, 3 to 2, 144 to we don't know how many trucks.
Okay, that's a nice rule to know.
Yeah, and this is, oh no, you don't have to do trigonometry. If you ever get to trigonometry, let's say some of you want to go further and you go to university after your GED, you learn about trigonometry and you learn about a 3 ratio, the Stein rule we call it, and we use it to find the heights of objects and the angles of objects. You can use it in real life, literally. You go out and measure the height of something using that ratio. All right, so that's a good rule to know. And thank you for the questions as it clarifies any holes or gaps that somebody might have. Any other questions before we do number 11? Right, so number 11, see if you can answer that. It's a little bit different here. There's no real problem solving. It's something similar though. It's all similar because it's all the concept of fractions. And it says, in the recent college football season, X threw 32 touchdowns and only 12 interceptions. In the most simplified form, what was his ratio of touchdowns to interceptions thrown? Now, never allow for lots of words to throw you off. Just remember the rules. Order is important. Think of the last question. What is the last question asking you? What is the ratio that they want you to write it in?
Supposed to be 32 over 12.
The answer is B.
Is B, 8:3.
B or D? B as in boy or D as in David?
B. B as in boy.
Okay, B as in boy. George, I heard you saying something. What was yours?
Yeah, the answer is B.
D as in David?
B is the boy.
Oh, B as in boy, okay?
Yeah,
So 2 B's as in boys. Latavia, okay, you're saying you're given the LCD, and I see an answer A. I see 2 A's here.
Mr. Ray, I got a question because on this one, do you simplify to like the most simplest form, or?
Yes, that's what they're asking right there. So you're going to simplify that down.
My bad. Sorry.
No problem.
I just skimmed right through it. Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So you could treat it as a fraction. If you're more comfortable with simplifying fractions to its lowest terms, you could write it as a fraction, simplify it, and then rewrite it back as a ratio. All right, so let's start going over it. Let's just get the order down first. We can look at the last part of the question. It says, what was his ratio of touchdowns to interceptions? So what is the order that they want?
32.
12.
Right, they want touchdowns to interceptions, right?
Yeah.
Which is 32 to 12. Be careful, sometimes they mix it up. They might write the interceptions first, then the touchdowns, but then actually to reverse it, to see if you really understood it.
Okay.
So be careful of how it can be written. Always look at how they state it. So now that we have 32 to 12, we could write it this way just to help you to reduce, right? Sometimes when it's written in this format, it could throw people off. So if I was to reduce this down as a fraction, what is the greatest common factor between 32 and 12?
Yeah.
4.
Okay, I hear 4. And so what's 32 divided by 4?
8.
8. And Latavia had given me the 4 as well for the greatest common factor there. And then 12 divided by 4 is?
3.
3. So what is this ratio?
3
to 3.
8 is to 3.
Is 8 to 3, right? 8 to 3. The top number goes first, then the second number, so that's an 8 to 3 ratio. And which answer is that?
B.
B.
B. So that's our answer. B is the final answer there. All right. Any questions for number 11?
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
yeah, let me see the number one, because that number one will be a bit confusing since
Super
we
nice.
have the hours of 60 hours.
Number 1? You mean the...
Number two rather.
Oh, yeah, we're going back to the other column. The first column, although it's the smaller numbers, they seem to be more challenging for students. So I did the second column first.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
we divided by 4 because that's the greatest number they have in common?
Yes, that's the greatest common number between the two.
Okay.
So remember, the long way to find that is to find the factors of 32. So you say 1 times 32. You say 2 times 16. So 3 doesn't go in there, so you take the 3 back out. Can 4 go in there? Yes, you can. 4 times 8. 5 can't go in there. 6 can't go. 7 can't go. 8, you're repeating yourself. You do the same thing for 12. 1 times 12. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. 5 times nothing. 6 times 2, it repeats. And you see there that 4 is the largest if you were to line them up.
Okay.
Right, and so then you divide both sides by 4, and that's how you get the 8-to-3 relationship.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, and welcome, Daniel. See that you're able to join us again. And I got your message.
Yeah, thank you for getting back to me.
Yeah, no problem at all. I got your message and put it in the system as well. All right, so just to let you know, Daniel, we are on lesson 5. And what page is this, somebody?
On the workbook or the
student book?
A student book?
Yeah. You said 7?
11.
11. Page 11 in the workbook.
All right.
We're on ratios and proportions.
Oh, workbook?
Oh, sorry, student book.
Oh.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at number 2. Okay, number 2, if you still, just remember, these rules work no matter what, whether you're in algebra, trigonometry, geometry, you name it. What you're learning here in Unit 1 covers and is the basis and the foundation for all of mathematics. And that's why you have to master Unit 1. Master Unit 1, you're on your way to understanding how to do everything, because everything just builds on what you're learning here. So even what you see here for number 2, it might throw you off in its wording, but keep the same concept. You're comparing two quantities, and you write those quantities in a specific order. All right, so number 2, you could go ahead and try number 2 and see if you get the answer before I do, or before I go over it. And number 2, you could do it 1 of 2 ways, but since I haven't showed you the second way, and by 1 of 2 ways, I mean proportions or ratios or the second method. We're going to learn about the second method as we go forward. So that's what I mean 1 of 2 ways. So if anyone knows the distance rate. All right, so I see answers popping up there. I see B, 2 B's and 84. Is that an answer?
No, that's an old answer.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, I see your new answer, 4. Okay, so that's another B. And another B's popping up. So I got a good bit of B's coming in. So we have Sam averages 65 miles per hour. What does that word per mean?
That is
2 over.
It means over, right? It's a division, just like percent, right? 100% means to divide by 100. So 5%, we learned to write it as a fraction, is 5 over 100. So 65 miles per hour lets you know how you can write it, that number, as a fraction. Or you could just use basic arithmetic. And that's the second method I was talking about. You can just try to think it through. Let me 65 miles per hour, how many hours, you could do stuff like that. All right, then we have our second step is how many hours in 260 miles. Now, since I got so many B's and no other answers, B is the correct answer there. And let's go ahead and work out why. It doesn't tell you any specific order, but hopefully everyone knows that speed is kind of constant in a sense. It means that you can't change your speed into 65 hours per mile. That just doesn't make sense, right? It's always in miles per hour. And since the per means to divide, that means it's really 65 miles per 1 hour. And now that you already have your order, then you can just write the other quantity in the same order. So what will go on top, miles or hours?
Miles.
Miles. So that's 260 miles. Over how many hours?
1.
Well, for the 260, we don't know how many hours yet, right? And so we put an X there. Right, so now we can just cross multiply. And there's a variety of ways to do it. You can try to, divide, find the greatest common factor between 260, all that other stuff. But we're just going to stick with the proportion method. So 65 times X is 65X equals to 260 times 1, which is just 260. That means 65 times the number is going to give me 260. Or I could just say 260 divided by 65. And remember, we've been learning that we can write that by dividing the number that's next to the variable by itself. And what we do to one side, we do to the other. This will cancel out to just 1. And so we have X is equal to 260 divided by 65. And you could do that in a calculator, or you could do it in long division, but you'll get an answer of 4. And so that's our answer. B is equal to 4. You could also write that out in ratio form by just putting 65 to 1, 65 colon 1, and then 260 colon blank, or whatever you want to put, and just figure out what you're multiplying it by. Since you're going by hours, you could just try timesing. 65 times 1 is 65, 65 times 2 is 130, and you can work your way up that way as well. Some people do that. But I'm only sticking to 2 main methods, proportions and ratios. Any questions with number 2?
No.
All right, hopefully you're starting to see the consistency here. Just keep everything in order. All right, number 3. You might, if you watch basketball, you actually, if you ever see the statistics parts, they're actually doing this concept, right? When they're saying, yeah, you guys are almost all same age group in my category. I don't think we have any millennials here or younger. So you remember Shaq, he was like a notorious free throw shooter. So when he came up to shoot, they're giving the percentages or the chances of how he might do for this shot, right? Or what's the chances that this team will beat another. If somebody gambles, you might know the games of chance. We're going to learn this pretty soon in probability. Can be written in ratio format, and therefore even as a percentage. And that's why you can have a 30% chance of shooting, right? So in this case, there's a 5-to-1 win-to-loss ratio. And you can use that to kind of predict games as well. You could use it to predict how many games they might lose if they play 25 and all this different stuff. But for this one, it just says the Jammers basketball team had a win-to-loss ratio of 5-to-1.
Right.
I see a lot of consistent answers popping up here. It says during their season, they won 25 games. How many games did they lose? All right, so which one goes first? Well, they already show you here. So win to loss. So win goes first.
5/1.
And then loss. If you want to write it in proportion, yeah, that's win over loss. If you write it in the proportion method, so that's 5/1. And that will be equal to what goes on top?
25.
25, because
No,
25 represents the wins, right?
Sorry.
Remember, wins go first. So it's always good to write out what the order is. So it's a win to loss. Win first, then loss. Remember, the ratio follows. So whatever ratio is first, or whatever part of that number in the ratio is written first, goes on top. So 5-to-1. This time it says they won. Remember, the wins are on the top, So the 25 goes on the top. The losses, the one you're looking for, is at the bottom. So since you don't know, you put an X. Right, and so then you can just use the procedural steps here. Cross multiply. So you get 5x equals to cross multiply 25. And most of you can see this without doing the second step. 5 times what's going to give you 25? If you're not sure, just divide both sides by 5, and x will be equal to 5. All right, so that's how you do the proportions. Remember, you always look at the order. So if it's win to loss, it's win over loss. Look for the word win, look for the word loss, or any synonym to that. And then you just write it that way. I'll also show how to do it using ratios. If you wrote it out as a ratio, you had 5 to 1, wins to losses, right? Wins first, then losses, so 5 to 1. 25 games, they won. And you don't know how many they lost yet. And you can just see, well, 5 times what, right? How many games extra, or what was the multiple did I do there? So I multiplied it by 5, and what I do to one side, I have to do this to the same. So 1 times 5 is 5. Right, so you can set it up as a ratio. When it's done this way, I actually do that in my head. I don't know, the more you do it, the easier it gets. But after a while, you can start to see it. And you can just say, oh, 5 times 5, or etc. Okay, number 4, I think, are you guys getting the gist of it? Is it making sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So just to let you know, when you try the workbook questions, you might run into some challenges, but the most challenges will be trying to be confident that you can do it, right? If you keep the rules, follow the rules, it shouldn't be that difficult. You're going to see a good bit of fractions in there and different formats. Just remember, a fraction and a ratio is the same. The numerator represents the first part of the ratio, and the denominator represents the second part of the ratio. And remember that order is important. The same rules for fractions can apply to the ratios. And then just remember, once a proportion set up, cross multiply, and you basically got it. I want everyone to really try the workbook questions because there are some challenging ones in there. So make sure between now and Thursday that you try as many. We might knock out some tonight, as I really want to make sure you understand it. All right, let's go to number 4. Let's see how fast you can get number 4. All right, so I have an answer. And Latavia, you sent that privately. That is correct. All right, Veronica, I see yours. That's correct as well. And I might look a little bit distracted, just trying to send something in real fast. All right, let's see what other answers we have.
I have 23 into 16.
23 to 16, okay, I see that Jacob sent that as well, and Just to let everyone know, Justine, Veronica, Latavia also have that, and Alma and Jacob. So you guys are all correct. I haven't seen any dissenting answer yet. And yeah, everyone's sending in A's there. And that is correct. The answer is A, 23 to 16. And remember, we're looking at the order. Always look at the question. It says, what is the ratio of the number of pants sold to the number of shirts? So that's pants to shirts. Right, so since we have pence to shirts, I just saw another answer in the chat. Just check. Yeah, that's right, Clemente. So pence to shirts, so we have 92 pairs of pence to 64 shirts. And they just want to know what is the ratio. This is similar to number 11, where you're going to simplify it, right? It's no different than if I ate, right? Let me just show you the connection. That we've been doing all this time, and I've been trying to hope that everyone will see the connection. That if I ate 1, 2, 3, 4 slices of pizza, so if I ate 4 slices to the total of 8, what is my ratio of pizza slices? Well, my ratio would be 1 to 2, or half of the pizza. Right, we're doing almost the exact same thing as fractions because they're all equivalent, right? And you can take those and convert them into decimals and percentages, etc. And you're not really required to do that per se in GD, but it's good to know the concept. And I'm gonna give you guys a worksheet. I'm gonna try to upload it before I forget. And I'm gonna do it in the next problem, number 5. All right, so we have 92 to 64. So we just, if you need to, write it as a fraction to help you out. Sometimes this helps people to see it better. If you write it as 92 over 64. Right, so if you write it that way, sometimes you can see it better. If you can see it here, that's fine, just divide it that way. What is the greatest common factor between 92 and 64?
4.
4, right? So we divide both of them by 4. 64 divided by 4 is what gives us 16. And 92 divided by 4 is what gives us the 23. So that's the simplest we can get it. And that means as a simplified ratio, they're about 23 to 16 pair of pence. Now we do that a lot. You might hear a lot of times in classroom settings and field trips, they might, or even like, let's say you're taking a class on a field trip to Disney, Disney might ask what are the ratios of boys to girls. Or they say, you know, somebody might have a stipulation of men to women or cars to trucks as we saw. And so you can use this simplified ratio and then apply it to real numbers. And that way you can always keep everything in proportion to each other, hence the terminology. All right, let's just do number 5 and number 6. So I'm gonna put both of them up there, and I'm just gonna make sure I share this worksheet I want you to have now before I forget. So number 5 and number 6, and that's where we're gonna stop for this, the last 2 for this section here. Number 5 and 6. All right, I see an answer already. Okay, 5, private answer. And who's that? Veronica? Yeah, that's, let me just make sure you sent that privately. Yes, that's correct. All right, so we have, okay, yeah, so we have C's C's and B's. All right, yeah. So some of you, we have answers for 5 coming up, and 6 just kind of was throwing me off at first. But yeah, I see C's and B's so far. No one giving a different answer. So it looks like everyone is getting the same answer of C, and it looks like C and A's, it looks like I'm getting. C and B's, I see A and B for number 6. So number 5, almost all of you have given C. For number 6, I'm getting A's and B's. So let's just start off with number 5, since we got answers so fast. For number 5, that is correct. Everyone has C there. The answer is C. And let's just briefly go over that one. Number 6, though, I'm getting 2 different answers. I'm getting A and B. And so you got to look at that one carefully there. All right, so for number 5, technically everyone's right, which is a good thing. But we get to number 6 in a moment. For number 5, you can write it in any format, miles and hours, right? It's 558 miles in 9 hours. Hopefully everyone just knows how to find out speed, right? Because that's what unit rate is. Unit rate is speed. And the reason why speed is what it is distance over time. So you have 558 miles, divided by 9 hours. You could just do that straight in the calculator. And the answer that you get is what we call a unit rate. You're just getting down your denominator to 1. So 558 divided by 9, that's all you need to do. 558 divided by 9 is going to give you 62. And your answer is in miles in hours over 1 hour. So 62 miles per 1 hour. And that's how we calculate speed. Distance over your time. So if you go from Fontana to LA in 30 minutes, you're traveling very, very fast. That means, what's like 70 miles, so 75 miles. You were traveling really fast, even through all the different turns and whatnot. So we possibly would be on the news later this evening. But anyhow, that's the answer. C is the answer for number 5. Now, number 6, as I said, we have A's and B, and technically you're both correct for if you chose A or B. But one of them is the only correct answer. And who knows why? One of them.
It's A.
So 1 represents sugar and 5 represents water.
Well, they're both correct, but only one is correct.
Hey.
Be simplifying it, I guess.
Simplified. Reduced it.
Remember, I said that before. I said in GED and every class, anything that you take, really, any math course or certificate, your answers must always be in what type of form?
Simplified.
Simplified form. So these are both correct in terms of value, but only one is correct in terms of expectation. And the expectation is that you always write fractions in their simplified form. Even ratios technically are always supposed to be in their simplified form. So we have 2 cups of sugar to 10 cups. They want sugar to water, so that's 2 to 10. And so most people say B, but that's not fully correct, because you must simplify this by finding the greatest common factor, which is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. And therefore, there's only one correct answer because you must simplify it down to 1/5. Never forget that one, because this gets a lot of people, and you see they're testing your ability to follow rules here. Now, some people get frustrated with rules, but I always use this as an analogy. Imagine, ladies, you're going to, or all of us, right? Gentlemen, you're going to the barber, you want a specific haircut. And let's say, guys, you want your nice straight line, and he takes your line back here because he likes that, and it's still a line. Would you be happy? No, but hey, it's just some rules. Who really cares about the rules, right? You have given specific rules, and you expect them to be followed. Same way here, they give specific rules, and they expect them to be followed. And same with ladies. Let's say you wanted a specific hairstyle, Let's say you want to be like these younger girls and you want half your head shaved, and the hairstylist shaves your whole head. It's like, what's the difference between a half and a whole, you know? Right? Would you be happy? And the reality is no. And so that means you want to always follow the instructions. And so that's what we're doing here. All right, any questions with ratios?
Some more examples, sir.
Pardon?
You can probably give us some more examples.
All right, so I was going to say I did want to try some examples from the workbook. I will not be able to share the screen, though. I don't have any pictures from the workbook. So if you can open your workbook to page 18 and 19. So this is from the workbook now, page 18 and 19 in the workbook. So 18 and 19 in the workbook, and you should see some questions here. And we're going to try to knock out a few of them. And let me just see. Let's start off with number 12. So look at number 19. Sorry, not number 19. Page 19 in the workbook. Remember, the workbook has the green title. So you want to make sure you have the workbook open now. And on page 19, number 12, I want to try that out. I can't bring it up, but I will read it to make sure everybody's on the same one. It says, there are 460 students in an elementary school. Of the students, 4/5 ride the bus to school. How many students use a different method of transportation? So there we go for number 12. Think about it carefully there. You have 4/5 of the students ride the bus to school. How many students use a different method of transportation? All right, so I have, and I'm not looking on the screen. So for number 12, the choice selections are 92, 115, 368, and 575. Okay, so Latavia, I see an answer. Now this one, you could answer it using ratios, or you can even answer it using fractions. Either way, give you the right answer. All right, so I see a lot of answers, 3 answers popped in, and all private. So yeah, you guys are all correct. Latavia, Justine, and Adriana. Those are correct answers. And I guess I could change it to the white screen now. All right. Any questions on this one? Is it throwing anybody off?
I'm still working on it.
Okay, remember, order is important.
Yes.
Boom. Awesome.
All right, and Veronica and Marisol, that's correct as well.
What are you doing there? And don't spoil me that soap there. Yesterday you came there and spoiled that soap. Don't touch it. Get out from that place.
What are you doing there?
All right, Dorcas, that's correct as well. And I'm looking at the time. We probably just start the other one on Thursday. All right, so let's go ahead and start this. Those of you, I don't want to say the answer yet. I know some people are still working. So let's just work with the setup. It says there are 460 students in an elementary school. So that's the total. And then it says, of the students, 4/5 ride the bus to school. What does that mean, 4/5 of the students ride the bus? Well, remember, Justine, were you going to say something? Your mic's muted if you were.
No. Sorry.
No, it's no problem. I just saw your thing light up. So normally that just means somebody wants to say something. Like Zoom lets me know who wants to talk in advance before you actually start something. All right, so 4/5, remember that means 4. If it was only a certain amount of students, it would mean 4 ride the bus. But it does not mean 5 does something else. It means 4 out of the whole, where 5 represents the total. So if 4 ride the bus, how many don't ride the bus? If 4 out of the 5 ride the bus, how many out of the 5 don't ride the bus?
One.
Right, so it means 1 out of 5 does not ride. So just be careful there. So it's two ways you could do it. The ways that we were doing, the ratios and proportions, or you could just say 4/5 of the number. You could just say 4/5 times 460. That would get you your answer as well. But now that you know what your thing is, you could just use this. This will get you there faster. Because if 1/5 does not, you can work your way. You could still do this. It just means you have to have a subtraction there. So let me do it both ways. If I do how many ride the bus, remember they're looking for how many what? Use a different transportation.
Or use a different method of transportation.
Right, so if we do this one, that means I have 4 to 5, right? 4 that ride the bus versus the total. So ride bus total, ride bus total. And so then if I wanted to find out how many rode the bus, I would have X or some blank spot, X to 460. Now, if you do that, just for a shortcut, because I already worked it out, well, let me just show you. We got to figure out what 5, how many times 5 goes into 460. And this is where you have to be careful. And if you times that by 92, you get that answer. And so if you times this one by 92, you get an answer of 368. Now, although that's a good answer, it's the answer for those who ride the bus. And so that means in order to find out who doesn't ride the bus, you're going to have to subtract 368 from 460. So you're going to have to say 460, subtract 368, and that's going to give you, you're going to have to borrow there, 10, that's 2, borrow there. 15 minus 6, it's going to give you 92. So that's how you can find the answer of A. You're going to have to do that and then subtract, because using 4/5 gets you those who are riding the bus, not those who are not riding the bus, if that makes any sense. So if I want to find those who are not riding the bus, then that's 1/5. And so if I could do that on the side, this is using the ratio method for both of them. And then I'll do the proportion method in case that's what everyone else done. If I use it, those who do not, then it's a 1-to-5 relation. Those who do not ride the bus to the total. And my total is 460. And I can already borrow that, times it by 92. I can't fit it there, but times it by 92. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. So 92 times 1 is just 92. And so my answer would be 92 do not ride the bus. Okay, so that's using ratios. Now you see how
I have
the...
a question.
Yes.
Okay, you know how you subtracted the 460
Mm-hmm.
from 368?
Right.
I did it differently.
So
I
you
believe
mean,
I divided
what answer did you get?
92.
So you said you divided and got 92?
Yeah.
You divided 460 and 368 and got 92?
No.
Oh.
I did 460 divided by 5 instead of, you know how you got the 92?
Mm-hmm.
So 5 goes into 460. You see how you subtracted it on the bottom?
Right.
460 take away 368.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused.
Did you use proportions or did you use ratios? Or did you do something else?
Mr. A.
I kind of did it in my head. I just divided 460 by 5.
That's just, well, it's kind of the same thing. 460 divided by 5 is 92.
That's what I got.
Yeah,
That's what I did.
Okay. Yeah, it just kind of confused me with the subtracting because I was like, where did you get all that from?
Well,
But I see what you
you're
did.
saying, but you want to be careful because that means anyone who just did that and that alone, you have to be careful if they ask something different, because that means that you could have just put the first answer that came up. And although it's 92, you just have to make sure you know why it's 32. If you get what I'm saying.
Mr. Rick, can you show me again how you got the 92 on both sides?
The only reason I'm saying that, Justine, I'm gonna get to you, Gennaro, is because sometimes the wording of the question will throw off everybody. Now, it's good that you notice that the 92 is the answer, but it's like, do you know why the 92 is the answer? But yes, that is the answer. Like if you change it to 3/5 and 2/5, then it wouldn't be 92. Like if you said 3/5 ride the bus and find out how many, and you guys did this and got 92, then 92 would not be correct, if you get what I'm saying.
Okay, got it.
Right? So it just happens that once you find that 92, because it's just one, that's the answer. But if I had said the ratio, like I said, if I said the ratio was 3/5 ride the bus and find out the ratio or how many students do not, once I got that 92, I would have to multiply it by 2 and get 184. And so if you're not sure what the 92 represents in the question, depending on the wording, it can throw you off.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think I did the proportion part and how you have like 5 times 92 equals 460. I had divided the 5 into the 460 and got the 92.
Right, and that's fine. I just want to really make sure that if we change the question around, that you know what you would have to do with that 92.
Okay. Okay.
So,
thank
like
you.
I said, you know what? I might give, once we're done, I might give a modified question to this and see if you guys can get it, just to really make sure everybody understands it.
Okay.
This one's a bit more straightforward. All right, Gennaro, what was your question?
Well, I was trying to do in the proportion fashion, and I don't know, I got stuck. So I was paying attention to how you were doing it, but how'd you get the 92 on both sides where it says
Well, I was going to do the proportion next.
Okay.
But with this one, you're just trying to see 5 times what gives you 460.
Oh.
And so you
5
could just
times
do it
what?
backwards. 460 divided by 5. So 5 times 92 is 460. So that
Okay.
means 4 times 92 is going to give you the answer of those who ride the bus.
So you do both. Whatever you get on one side, you do on the other.
Right.
Okay. So 4 times 92. Okay.
And then now the tricky part is once you get this, the 368, to know that's not your answer. That's your answer of those who ride the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to find those who don't ride the bus, you're going to have to subtract it from 460.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then the other side is if you had thought through it and just said, well, if 4 ride the bus, then 1 does not. And that way you get the 92. But like I was saying to Justine, if I had changed it from 3 ride the bus to 2 does not ride the bus, and you guys just get 92, it won't be the answer. But if you do it the proportions way, and that's what we're going to do next, the proportions way is possibly what most people done. And this is where the proportions will trump the ratio. I'm just going to clear everything. So if we did it the proportions way, we have 4/5. It just makes it a little bit easier. We have 4/5 ride the bus. We don't know how many ride the bus. How many use 4/5 in the proportion?
I did.
Okay. And anyone else use 4/5 who got A?
I did.
All right, so let's go ahead and work this out real quick. So we have 4/5 equals to X over, what was the total amount?
460.
460, thank you. All right, so over 460. All right, so then we'll cross multiply. We're gonna say 4 times 460, and I don't have that worked out. So what is 4 times 460?
1840.
Okay, 1840 is equal to 5x. And then we're going to divide both sides by 5 there. And what's 1840 divided by 5?
368.
368. And so this is where you still, and I'm seeing some answers popping in. Let me just read them real quick. Okay, so I see some people, I'm gonna throw in something else, see if you guys could get it. So once we get that, we have to know that this X equals to 368 represents those who rode the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to find out those who did not ride the bus, we're going to have to subtract it from the 460. And that's how we get the 92. Now, some of you, I'm seeing that you're saying you got the 92 without doing this. I'm trying to just, when you saw me, if you saw me stop, I was reading someone's explanation. You said you did the 460 over X equals to the 4/5. And so you divided the 460 by 5, and it gave you the 92. I see what you're saying there. It's just that one. Okay, let's just see. I just want to test to see if you guys really understand it. So any questions about this before I give a variation to the problem?
No, I got it. And I understood it. I do better with the proportion part.
Yeah, if it's proportions, stick to the proportions. And I just, because a lot of people saying they got the 92. And it really works well because the other one was 1.
Yeah, because so on my paper, I did it like I told you earlier, like with the opposite. I had the 460 on the top and the X on the bottom, and I was getting these big numbers. I'm like, oh no.
Well, that's fine. If you do the 460 on the top, that's still fine. You can have 460 over X. It's just that you have to have the other side as 5 over 4.
Okay. So okay, that's. Well, I didn't know I could do that. Okay.
Yeah, it just
so
has
I had a 4 over 5 and 60 over X. 460 over X. That's where I was messing up.
It always has to be consistent. So 460 was the total, and 5 represents the total. 4 represents those on the bus, and X represents those on the bus. So it has to always be lateral.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to switch it up just a bit. The same question, 460, right? We've got 460 students in total. This time we have 2/5 that rode the bus. And I want you to find out how many did not. All right, so everybody understands that same exact question. The only difference now, we're changing how many were on the bus. And I just want to see, for those of you who said you got the answer, just to make sure that you really understood that concept there.
And 20.
$204.
Yeah, 204. And you can write your answers in the chat as well. Okay, so I'm seeing everyone sending privately, so let me just write. All right, so I'm looking at the time, so we're just going to start going over this. All right, so I see a good bit of you have 276, and that would be the correct answer. And if you can explain why you're getting 276, I just really want to make sure you guys are understanding your answers.
Okay.
So anyone who got 276.
Yeah, I got 276.
All right,
Well,
so you can explain.
I did the same.
Just take us to the end.
The same procedure as we did the last one, the 4/5. I just did 2/5, and I crossed multiply 2 times 460 and got me 920. And I did the work here over 5. 920 equals 5x, and I divided the 5, canceled the 2 5s on my right side, and got 184 from 920 divided by 5, 184, and I just subtracted 184 from the 460, got 276.
Okay, that's a great answer. And that's the way that we'll normally teach it, that way or the other way that I showed everyone. All right, anyone else who got 276? I just really want to make sure, based off of the other descriptions I was getting, I really want to make sure everybody gets it, because as you will see, and I want everybody to try it between now and Thursday, the different types of problems that will appear in the workbook. Anyone else? How did you get 276? If it was different than what Gennaro said.
No, it's pretty much the same.
Same.
So to 2/5 do ride the bus. So I need to figure out how many of 460 do ride the bus. So that took me through the whole procedure. Ended up canceling the 5s. X ended up being equals to 148. So 184 out of the 460 do ride the bus. So I just need to find the difference now. And that will be the ones that do not ride the bus. So I just subtracted, like brother said, 460. I take 184, it leaves me with 276. that is the amount of students that do not ride the bus.
Okay, that's correct as well, and great explanation, reinforcing those concepts. Anyone else would like to share? Did you do it the same way as Jacob and Gennaro? If you did it a different way and you got it, I want to see your explanation just to really make sure if you're thinking through it and if you really understand it, so you don't get thrown off on a test question. If you don't want to say it, you can write it in the chat. You can explain what you've done. It's just remember what I said before. For some of you, the explanations that I saw, some people send it in the chat and some people said out loud. It's just a bit, you got to be a bit careful there because it was the number 1, and that allowed for you to drop that out without having to really understand about that last digit, because technically you still had a 4 there. So I really want to make sure everybody gets it. Susanna, you said the same way. And let me see, some people being quiet there. So Latavia, was yours the same? Veronica, did you do it the same way? You guys got 76, as 276 as well.
Yes.
You did it the same way as them?
Yes.
Okay, Justine, okay, no, you had something, there's someone else. Latavia, did you do it the same way as them or a different way? All right, so I'll take that as, okay, Adriana did the same way. All right, so let's go over it. Do I have time to do the 2 ways? Just remember, you just want to be careful, and the reason why I'm axing over is because some of the explanations in the first one, you could run into a lot of trouble based off of the way it was described. But for this one, if you do it using the 2/5, if you have to go in between my explanation, it's totally fine, I understand. For those who want to see both ways, you can stay. So just we got 1 minute. So for those who have to go, don't feel bad if you have to run. Remember, please work on the other problems from page 18 to page 27. Have any
Mr. Ray,
questions ready for Thursday? Yes.
are we expecting a worksheet?
I was going to give one, but the worksheet I was going to give has other stuff on there that we haven't covered. So I didn't say it, but yeah,
we'll just
there's
continue
no
to go
worksheet.
through, just finish and practice with the workbook, and then we'll see you next Thursday.
Right, there you go.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Since the first method was explained, I'll do the second method. The second method is, instead of 2/5, you're going to have 3/5 that are going to be not taking the bus. And so you can write it out of the 460, and you have x, and so you can multiply that. And 3 times the 460, this is the second way of doing it, is 1380 is equal to 5x, and you divide both sides by 5. And then 1380 divided by 5 will give you those who do not catch the bus right away. So you don't have to do any subtraction there. You subtract in the beginning because 2 out of the 5 are catching the bus. So 3 out of the 5 are not catching the bus. That's how to do it the alternative way. The method that the other gentleman said, Jacob and Gennaro, would have been 2/5. What they both described is x over 460. You multiply these 2 times 460. They gave the answer, but I don't remember what it was off my head. 920. So 920 is equal to 5x. You divide both sides by 5. And you get x equals to 184. But 184 are those who ride the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And so to find those who do not ride the bus, you say 460 subtract 184. And that's what gives the 276. All right? Yes, sir. You have to be careful here because it's a little bit different than the first one. The first one worked out where you did not have to do it the whole way because you were dividing by 1. Remember I said that, I think it was number 1 in the first exercise, that sometimes you can get it to work doing something completely different and it works that way, but it will not work for another scenario. And so just keep that in mind. You really want to make sure you have it. Always justify your answers. That helps you to really make sure you understand it and you don't set yourself up for a mistake in the future. But just remember, you want to practice all the different types. If you could do all of them, that would be excellent in lesson 5 in the workbook. As you see, the problems are a little bit more challenging and you have a different type. So go ahead and try it. Remember, use the basics understanding. Fractions and ratios can be rewritten in an equivalent manner. The first number over the second number is the same as the first number to the second number. Order is important in name, and if you remember all that, you shouldn't have any issues. If you do, make a note of it and bring those issues to class on Thursday. We will handle it in the first few moments of class, and then we'll enter it into decimals and decimal computation for the rest of the class. All right, if there's no other questions, you are officially dismissed. 2 minutes over. Enjoy your evening, and hopefully see everyone on Thursday.
Good night.
Bye,
Good night,
Good night. Have a
Mr.
great
Thank
evening.
you. Good night.
Yes, good evening. Have a good night.
I have a question, Mr. Ray.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's me, Guadalupe.
Yes.
I'll be having a lot of trouble getting into class because I'm back to work because we reopened, you know, because of COVID-19. And there's any chance I could move into your morning class?
Yeah, I have no problem. I just have no real control over the scheduling. So if you want to make sure your name's on the roster, you just have to call the school.
The school?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
just ask them and say that I'm okay with it.
Oh, okay. So I
Yeah.
could call in till morning. So what time is your morning class?
The morning classes are Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to 11.
Okay, that sounds better. Yeah.
But
'cause I usually go-
they're a bit ahead because they started 2 weeks before you guys, so they're 2 weeks ahead. So they just started Unit 2. So they're already. You have to catch up what's in between. We're not that far behind them because there's only 2 weeks difference. But
right.
we're in lesson 4. They just finished lesson 7 today. So
Okay,
I mean, we're in
so-
lesson 5. So you have to learn lesson 6 and lesson 7 to catch up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give a call at school tomorrow morning so I could be there at 9. Thank you so much.
I'm totally fine with it. So I can send you the link as well. I don't know if you want it now or you just message me for it.
Yeah, you could. If you could send it now, that would be great.
You want to hear it on like now on this or on Remind?
I remind.
Okay, yes, I'll do that on Remind.
Yeah, because I'm multitasking, I'm working, I'm listening, I'm paying attention to class,
Totally
and I'm like,
yeah.
That's why I be sending you messages, you know, like, hey, I can't make it, or I'm at work.
Right. I
Yeah.
totally understand. Yeah, so if you got the evening shift, the morning class is definitely better.
Yes, because usually I was like, no, well, you know, everything was closed, but we reopened. So yeah, it's so hard.
That's no problem. I have no problems with it if you join. It's just that if you want your name in that roster, the school does that part.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and send you that link and Remind, and it's 9 to 11 every Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoy your rest of the evening. Travel safe, especially heading home.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, and did anyone else have a question there? Gennaro?
Yes, I was wondering, you would happen to have like videos like on YouTube or something that I could help study or?
Yeah. Well, I don't have. Okay. So I'm working.
Or any you recommend? I mean, like.
I'm working on getting our classes on YouTube, so you can always rewatch them. In terms of finding the information, you could type it in there. I could try to find videos for you that are more pinpointed, and I am working on trying to get them on YouTube for ourselves as well.
Okay.
I don't have them up yet. And even if you're interested in watching my morning classes, I have more of their classes up right now. So they're a little bit ahead. They started in August 10th, I think. We started like August 20 something. They're like 2 weeks ahead. So that's one way if you want to catch the class that I do in the morning on YouTube. Or I could just send you guys YouTube videos that are covering that topic.
Okay. I'll see if I could try 9 o'clock my lunchtime. Maybe I could squeeze that half hour in.
I mean, I put the recordings on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you don't mind watching a 2-hour class on YouTube, I could do that. But other than that, I can try to find them specifically. But you just have to remind me to send them. So
all right, thank you so much.
Just hit me up and remind, just say, can you send me something on ratios? And I'll look for something that's specific to this. It's not all ratios is what you want. If you just type in ratios, you're going to get some stuff that you'd be like, oh, I wish I didn't see this. right?
Yeah, there's some that are like right on it, and there's some that are like a little bit different. I'm like, wait, they're sending me
Right.
to.
You want the stuff for the GED, so
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you want
Okay.
that, just send me reminders to send it to you, basically.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much.
You're
Have a good
welcome.
night.
Yes, you as well. And remember, just send me a message if you want me to do that, because I'll possibly forget. I have so much on my plate.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. You're welcome.
Mr. Ray,
Yes.
this is Salvador. I was,
Yes. How you doing,
yeah,
Salvador?
sir, I know the class is over. Hopefully you have a minute to spare.
Yeah, no problem.
So on this last one, I had a hard time through the whole class, like understanding what exactly we're doing. And I was a little not concentrated, but I know there's two forms to do it. So the ratio part and the fraction part. If I do the ratio, let's say this last one, I put 2/5 ratio and then 60. So obviously the 60 is the whole number and the 5 is the whole number. I mean the ratio. So I put 2 and then dots and then 5 and then
Right.
and then on the bottom I put 60 and then under the 2 I put X. And then on the fraction, I do 2/5 and then 60. Now, when I do the ratio part, whatever number multiplies, it gives me 460 is the same number I multiply by 2, and it'll give me the same answer. On the fraction part, I'm gonna multiply the 2 by 460 and then divide it by 5. And then whatever I get from there, then I subtract that from the 460 and it also will give me the number, right?
Right, for this one, yes, because it's just that this one you're subtracting because that 2 represents the opposite one, the ones
Right,
that
and if I went for the 3, obviously I come up with the correct answer right away because the 3 is the ones that don't. I was having a hard time the whole class started to understand, and right towards the end of it, I kind of got it. I'm gonna work on the book, and I'll make sure I go through it before.
and whatever you have troubles with, just make a note. If it's 5 of them, that's cool. Once you master ratios, it really makes it easier for algebra and geometry. So I don't mind staying a little bit longer on ratios because we really need it to do well in the other topics.
Right.
So whatever problems you see in there, let's say you have a problem with like 2, 10, and 15, then tell me on Thursday, 2, 10, and 15, and that's the ones we'll work on.
Okay, I'll make sure that. Thank you.
You're right, you're welcome. But yeah, you got it down. What you explained, you're on the right track.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, George, any questions? Your mic is muted. You just have to click the unmute at the bottom of your screen. You should see the mic. All right, you should be able to talk now, George.
Yeah. Actually, let us see on Thursday. I will try to do revision. Then any topic that I come across too difficult, we shall revise it on Thursday.
Right. Yeah. So any issue you have on the ratios from the workbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So try all of them if you can. You know, I know it's just one night because tonight's kind of late. But if tomorrow you can try to do as many as you can and just have them ready for Thursday.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right. So enjoy your evening and be safe.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.